Ooh, you thought I was going to be late today, didn't you? Surprise, surprise. Ding dong, the witch is alive, folks. Good afternoon, everybody. And a good Wednesday afternoon to you all. Today is Wednesday, November 29th, 2023, and you are locked into the Southside Beat as you are at 3 p.m. Eastern every Monday through Friday here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. He is Chris Halicke. I am hotspot quality Corey Crisan from the warehouse, baby. We are making it. I got into the stream, into our setup with about 90 seconds to spare here on a Kenny Pickett Wednesday here on the South Side, and we're rolling today. It has not been a slow day by any means over here on the South Side.
No, didn't think it would be. Obviously, first practice of the week, and then you got Kenny talking, Naji talk today. Deontay obviously addressing his situation. So got a few things to hit on obviously today from everything that you covered today. So but yeah, Wednesdays are typically pretty busy, but then obviously a couple extra things on there with a couple guys like Naji and Deontay talking. That's just going to make things even more. So yeah, I mean, I guess just overall takeaways from what you saw, from what you heard over on the South Side today. I'm sure there's quite a bit. Todd, awesome, welcome.
Hey, Todd. Thanks,
New
Todd. We
member here
that.
on YouTube. But Corey, what are some of the takeaways that you have? Obviously, we have the episode kind of geared toward what's next for Kenny, but obviously we have a few things to get on. So
yeah, I mean, we'll start with the start. And the start of this morning at 10:45 a.m. Shortly after that was Deontay Johnson, and look, special guest.
Hey,
special guest. You remember
Dale
this face?
Lally.
You remember that face? There's our friend Dale Lally. Okay, so we'll start at the start before Dale came in. There you go. How about that? You never know who's going to appear on the Southside Beat when we're actually
good old
on the
DKPS alum there right there.
Yeah, the background is awesome. It's the ceiling of the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex indoor. I'm sure there might be a couple footballs lodged up there from pit punting practice or whatever. But anyway, I look ready for a cage match. I feel like Paulie from Rocky right now. That tends to be my aesthetic. Once we get into winter, that tends to be my aesthetic. Just like the crew neck with the beanie and everything, trying to stay warm. It's cold over here today. It's a cold day. Okay, so let me get to my point, people, please.
Yeah.
I love you all, but please. Start at the start. 10:45 a.m. ish. Deontay Johnson steps right to that backdrop, and he took it like a man. He answered all the questions that we had about the play, about the lack of effort on the fumble. He said he addressed the team over it, and the team really just let him say what he had to say. And then, Mason Cole, of course, asked about it. It was talked amongst other offensive players today, and Mason Cole basically said the same thing. Deontay, as long as I don't get twisted like Paul, you're right about that. The consensus is that Deontay addressed it. He owned up to it. He atoned for it. He realized what he did. It didn't take a film study to realize that he screwed up. No. And they just want to move on from it. I mean, that's the bottom line, is they want to move on from it. There's trust in Deontay Johnson. And like we talked about, as Swan mentions here, Swan says, I believe Deontay really gives a crap. He does. Believe me. Deontay Johnson does. And that's what that was about. So we'll put the Deontay Johnson stuff to bed. I know DK and Ramon talked about it pretty in length yesterday. So we're going to put that to bed. Moving on, I got a couple one-on-ones, did a couple small things. I did a couple small things for Insider, of course, for a future Insider. And, the afternoon session was really about Kenny Pickett and what he had to say. And the number one takeaway for me that I'm going to expand more on DKPittsburghSports.com later is that the fluidity of the process of getting Mike Sullivan and Eddie Faulkner into their positions in the systems that are driving the offense. Of course, 421 yards of offense. That's something we all wanted to see.
Yeah.
But they only scored 16 points against the team that was allowing about 23. So, a touchdown left off the board, of course, with Deontay, and the no call and the touchdown that should have been a touchdown. Things are adding up for this offense now, is what I'm saying. The identity is there. They're going to run the football first. There's a recommittal to running the football first. And that's not a recommittal of, they're saying they're going to run the football. That's proof of of Eddie Faulkner being in the status that he's in. This is what they're built to do, and they're going to do it. And then it's Kenny Pickett throwing for the most yards, I think, since the Buffalo game last year, it was his first start. It was his first start.
I mean, even then, that game was so out of hand early on that it just became a throw fest. I mean,
yeah,
him getting, I don't know, I can't remember if he got the 300 yards in that game, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did, just because the Steelers were playing multiple scores behind for essentially the entire game.
Right.
So that's just one of those games where you're like, okay, game plan's gone. We're just going to have to air it out for 3 quarters.
Sure. And he completed the largest percentage of his passes since that Bills game as well. So he was efficient as well. This was the most efficient we've seen Kenny Pickett since the first time we saw Kenny Pickett start a football game. So there's a lot to build upon. And the thing I asked Kenny today, I asked him 2 major questions, and that was, how did it feel from a flow standpoint of Eddie Faulkner designing the offense throughout the week, creating the game plan, and then Mike Sullivan calling that game plan and executing that game plan? I think one thing that doesn't get talked about enough is the efficiency of the delivery of plays from the coach's box or the sideline to the quarterback's ear and the headset, and Kenny Pickett in his ear. And it's, whatever the formation is, whatever the route combo is, whatever the blocking combo is, all of that has to be relayed like that very quickly. There's a cadence and a flow to all of that. And Mason Cole said it this morning about how Coach Sullivan made it a point going into this game to get things into the sideline as fast as he could.
Mm-hmm.
And then let Kenny Pickett decipher it and decode it from there. And then it corroborates with what Kenny Pickett said in the afternoon about, there's some stuff to iron out as far as that cadence and exactly what Coach Sullivan wants and the terminology. Not that he doesn't know the terminology, but meaning doing things so fast and doing things so efficiently and really optimizing how that's all done. I thought that was fascinating stuff from Kenny Pickett. And he seemed like he was comfortable with how they did it on Sunday, while at the same time acknowledging that it can be fine-tuned a little more. So that's encouraging stuff to hear from my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, when you start talking about, offensive efficiency, obviously the main thing that everybody looks at is how a team is when it comes to actually scoring points, gaining yards per play, all that kind of stuff. That's obviously one way to define efficiency. How the offense operates is another way that the offense can be efficient, and not being completely cleaned up on your details when it comes to how plays are called, when it comes to how plays are executed, when it comes to route running, when it comes to blocking assignments, all that kind of stuff, all those details. And there's always so many. So that's why every time you hear a player talk about details, it's because all football is attention to detail. And when you're not completely, when you don't have your details fine-tuned, you can be a bit out of sorts. Now, obviously the offense did a great job of moving up and down the field. They wouldn't have put up 421 yards of offense if they didn't.
Sure.
But that kind of stuff, lack of details in certain areas, really show up in the red zone, which, because obviously the field gets much shorter. You don't have as much room to work. And so if every little detail from something going from Mike Sullivan's mouth to Kenny Pickett's ear, from the pre-snap read to how pass protection is set up, to how routes are run, all of that stuff, it's even more under the magnifying glass when you get into the red zone, which I think it's not an accident that the Steelers went 1 for 4 in the red zone against the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, even with all of that, and this is, I think, where you can take solace from, they only put up 16 points, but from where you can take solace is they had another 7 with that Deontay play. That's 23. And then a bit of a better throw from Kenny on the deep out to Deontay. If he throws it to the pylon, that's either a touchdown on that play or it puts them at 1st and goal on like the 1 or the 2 yard line.
Sure.
That's probably even more points.
Sure.
And so if the Steelers put up 26 points instead of 16, nobody's talking about, they didn't do this. So I think, again, I think that's why Sunday is so encouraging for how they played, despite not being completely up to up to snuff on all their details and stuff like that.
And another thing that Mason Cole talked about was the penalty on Broderick Jones. I believe they were marching. I think they were within the 30-yard line. I have to go back and look at the game book. Mm-hmm. They were within the 30 or they were around the 40, one of those two, and it drove them back 10 yards. And ultimately, they had to punt it away on a short field. Like that was towards the end of the first half. And like that opportunity as well squandered because of a penalty. They committed 5 penalties for 55 yards. So it's not like they ran it up by any means, but it's the timeliness of all of that stuff. Darren asks, reading between the lines, did Matt Canada have slower brain twitch fibers? This is going off of what I said about things being faster and more efficient and more coherent. I can't English, ironically, coherent. How funny is that? And just doing things in such a manner that it flows quickly. And then it does give Kenny the opportunity to get to the line of scrimmage and everybody can get set and they're not rushed into the play. I don't know if Canada, I don't have that technology to discover if Matt Canada has slower twitch fibers, but what I can say is that this is the first time that anybody's talked about efficiency in play calling as far as getting the play in and then getting set quickly. I haven't really heard any of that with Matt Canada. So read that, into that for what you're worth. Vegeta, God bless you, man. Who he asked, searching for the Dragon Balls. Who has the biggest game this week on offense? One of the running backs, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Pat, someone else. I think this is a really good opportunity for Pat Freiermuth to do it again. Like maybe not 9 catches for 120 yards again, but I think he can have a good 6 to 7 catch day for about 80 yards. I think he can have a really good day against this Cardinals defense.
I mean, obviously there are points to be scored against the defense, but if there is a stronger point of the Cardinals defense, their safeties are pretty good. Obviously, I'm not going to talk them up the same way Mike Tomlin did, but the Cardinals are not as weak at safety as the Bengals are. So if Pat Freiermuth, I don't anticipate 2 or 3 big chunks of 24, 29, 27, however many yards over the middle again. I think it will be more of the maybe more on the out routes, maybe more on, obviously you could still have some in breaking stuff. And maybe, if the Cardinals do show some middle field open stuff, you can have the opportunity to hit that. I just don't think it'll be as available, especially now that the Steelers have put it on tape. Sure. The Cardinals will be paying attention to that if they haven't already started doing that.
Swan asks, do you guys think Martinez and Jack have the potential to get an opportunity before the season's over? Now, as of right now, Blake Martinez is on the 53-man and Miles Jack is on the practice squad. So it'll be Martinez before Jack, if anything.
I think Miles Jack is an absolute last resort, man.
Right, but even then, I don't know what Blake Martinez has. He had a good contract with the Raiders after he had really good success in New York. Hasn't really lived up to it, really underperformed, and that's why he was on, 2 practice squads before he was able to sign here. So I don't know what kind of impact they're going to be able to have. But as far as opportunity goes, the old one play away from being one play away, so to speak, with Landon Roberts and Michael Walker and Mark Robinson. Put it to you this way, they signed Michael Walker off the practice squad of the Falcons, and they put him right into a starting role right away because there really isn't any good pass catching linebackers on this roster anymore. With Cole Holcomb and Quan Alexander being down. So, we'll see on those two, but I think Blake would be the first one. Frank says still working with Matt Canada's playbook and need to make adjustments. I mean, that's fair. And they will. And you saw those tweaks come through already.
Oh yeah. There were definitely just some differences. And when it comes to the play calling thing, really, I don't remember which episode it was, so I can't point to it, but Ben Roethlisberger on his podcast talked about he obviously played under a few different coordinators over the course of his career. And he always talked about, and he kind of talked about how different coordinators would do certain things differently when it comes to play calling. And he's like, certain coordinators would be 2, 3, 4 plays ahead. Just because obviously you've got to adjust, based off of what happens down to down, but they would have a certain science to the play calling so that they would be able to get plays in right away. Right. And I'm sure that the way Matt Canada calls plays versus the way Mike Sullivan calls plays is different because I'm sure it varies between every single coordinator. So that is going to take a certain adjustment for Kenny as well. And it's not a surprise that Kenny talked about it today because it is different from play caller to play caller to play caller.
That's right. Hold on, I got a couple more here that I wanted to get to. Darren asks, any thoughts on Darnell Washington lining up at right tackle and Jones sliding outside more left for play? Never seen that alignment in my time. Now we've seen the bonus tackle, so to speak, like with 3 tackles in, but not like this. Not when the right tackle goes over and swings over and creates a pseudo guard situation for Dan Moore. But I think that's only something that a guy like Darnell Washington can unlock with his size. Like if they really needed to convert somebody into a tackle, if like worst came to worst, then Darnell Washington has the frame for it. And those kind of formations and that kind of package can highlight Darnell Washington's blocking ability in some ways. I thought that was a fascinating thing too.
Yeah,
that I saw from them.
I really liked that formation, but I think that's something that you really only pull like kind of pull that out of the hat whenever you're in certain situations. Obviously, that was on a 3rd and short. You're trying to, and this is what was kind of missing under Canada. It's not like it never happened, but it was just so few and far between. Trying to do something pre-snap to get the defense to go, okay, what the heck are they going to do? You know, a lot of the times when that pony package, Jaylen Warren would be lined up, he would move in motion, and then so pretty much you're having the defense go, okay, it's either going to be a sweep to Jaylen or it's going to be a run to Naji. But then whenever you do what you did with, or do what they did with, you know, Darnell Washington now actually officially the right tackle and moving Broderick Jones over to a tight end position on the left side, now you're really jacking with the defense of being like, okay, well, I know they like to run the jet sweep with Jaylen out of this, but now they've got 2 tackles on one side.
Yep.
So essentially on the left side of the line, it went center, guard, tackle, tackle. And you're going as heavy as you can over on that side. And you're like, man, like, we better pay attention to that side, because if Naji gets behind that, he could have some room to run. And so it's just more of that pre-snap manipulation of the defense, and anything that helps disguise that kind of stuff, that can create leverage, that can do anything. I'm all for it. But that's what, again, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. Just doing different things like that, little wrinkles, can be all the difference in the world.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, Frank brings it up here. The 2-headed monster might be a little exaggeration, but 2 really good running backs, a couple really good tight ends that do
I would
different
say
things.
A 2-headed monster, honestly.
In all 3 positions, though.
Oh,
and 2 receivers.
I mean,
2 receivers. I mean, they have 2
Deontay
good
George.
players at both positions. I agree with that. Yeah, not so low risk today, Sea Shadows. I'm still inside, but I'm in
He's
a better
hotspot Corey today.
Yeah, I'm in a better spot at least. And Darren, yes, I did see where you were going with the Darnell Washington to tackle comment. So number 1, good try. Number 2, I saw it immediately. Number 3, I also know where you got the reference from, I think, as well. Throwing out 13 personnel in this economy. I mean, look,
I will say, like, you can't do that if I'm going to say you can't do that. You don't do that as easily without Pat Freiermuth.
Right.
So
as everybody's talked about, Mike Tomlin, Kenny Pickett, everybody's talked about Pat Freiermuth's return being huge for this offense.
If your 3 tight ends on the field are Darnell Washington, Connor Hayward, and Rodney Williams, that's not as formidable as when Pat Freiermuth is out there.
Forget formidable; it's not threatening at all. It's not even threatening.
I mean, Darnell Washington can do a lot of good things, I think, but a lot of it is underneath and then try to let him run. It was kind of the same thing with Zach Gentry. Zach Gentry is a large human being. Like, get him in some space, get him the ball, and then let him start running downhill. Good luck tackling him. It's the same thing with Darnell Washington. Only Darnell Washington is a little bit more athletic and he's a better blocker. So that's, yeah.
Right. Jim, every time I see Andre Iguodala's name, I just think of Max Kellerman on that one episode of First Take when he was asked, you know, do you want one final shot to hit to win the game? Do you want Steph Curry or Andre Iguodala? And Max Kellerman goes, the Martian's got the death beam pointed on the face of the earth, one shot to save the fate of the universe. And he stares into the barrel of the camera and he goes, I want Iguodala. I'll never forget that. Yeah, Jim, I know. Listen, I'm a big basketball fan, so I will put basketball references on the screen if I could go with them. So, yeah, I will do that. Okay, another person that talked today, and I think this is important, is Naji Harris. And the last time we heard from Naji, we as in the world, really, was after the Browns game and after a loss where everybody was feeling kind of down about it. They really didn't know what to do. They were kind of confused and lost and just like kind of at wits, like with what the heck this offense could do to improve. And then Matt Canada gets fired 2 days later. So Naji Harris hadn't spoken since then. And today was the first day when he was, he didn't really address that because he said what he said and he's really not going to change what he said. But he spoke of the distraction, so to speak, of everything around them. And look, I understand there's a lot of buzz created from reporters, fans. Everybody's responsible for this in some way, shape, or form. And to be honest, a lot of it was warranted because of how bad the Steelers' offense has been over the last 2 years. But I think Naji kind of like reaffirmed that his voice is pretty imperative in this situation where he's talking about the team sticking together and how if they lose the team, they lose everything, and how this kind of a thing couldn't be so damning to this organization and to this team when they're in the spot that they're in. They're still in a playoff spot. They're still, if the season ended today,
they're the 5 seed
in the AFC. Right.
They're the top wild card.
So I thought that was important, not just for Naji to say what he said in the context of what he said, but I think it was important for him to reaffirm and to come back and say, look, we understand what was at stake. We understand what was happening. And now they get to move on from it. Like this week almost feels like, and I talked about this a bit Monday with the whole just idea of getting the win and absolving and washing away that Matt Canada era, so to speak. You said it, not me. That was on my mind. But just washing away that Matt Canada era, so to speak, of now it's Eddie Faulkner, Mike Sullivan, and they won with them and they produced really well with them. And now, again, not all of this is absolved. There's still more to do. But this is like almost affirming what Naji said after that Browns game in a way.
Yeah, it's Naji, and this is what I was kind of talking about yesterday, or the opposite of what I was talking about yesterday. I saw somebody mention when we talked about Deontay was like really soft spoken. I can't hear him. Deontay is just a soft spoken person. Like it's just how he talks. He's not trying to like keep things under, and not talk. He's not a natural born leader, not a natural born talker in front of people. Naji's not like that. Naji's a natural born leader. He quickly embraced that role, even as a rookie, but especially as a second year. His second year, he was named the captain of the team. He's not a captain this year, but he's still a leader in that locker room. It's just when Naji talks, it garners attention, not just from the media, from the fans, but from his teammates. And I would say even the coaches obviously pay attention because that is one of the leaders in the locker room. So when he gets frustrated the way that he did and talked the way he did after that Cleveland loss, that was a big deal, not just because of what he said. It was because it's who it's coming from. If almost anybody else in that locker room says that stuff, it's just some dude complaining. If Naji says that, that's a different story. And for him to come, like and say the things that you said that he said today, man, like that's. Listen, he is as team first as it gets, and he understands that just because things have changed, maybe for the better, it doesn't mean that. To put it in the way Mike Tomlin says, they're not going to just exclaim eureka and everything's all fixed. Like no, they have a lot of work still to do. Even with the week, the schedule getting a little lighter the next couple weeks, they still have a lot of work to do. If they take care of business the way they should be 9-4 after these next 2 weeks and set themselves up really, really good, not just for a playoff spot, but for a realistic run at winning the division.
Cat Manada, he asks, is it fair to say Naji is the leader on the offense now? If not, who is? I think Naji's been leader. I think Naji's been a leader of the offense, but Kenny is the leader of the offense.
Yeah,
With that being said, I think what we learned over the last couple of weeks about Naji Harris is just how respected his voice actually is, and how much what he says, when he says it, people actually give a damn about, and people take to actual heart, and they don't, just look at him as another running back and another guy on the team. Like he matters. He has a lot of stature on this team. And I think that his words against the Browns were very impactful. I'm not saying that's why they fired Matt Canada, but I will say that they were very impactful in some kind of way. Tyler says, how about Trent Thompson? Dude has been awesome stepping in for Minka and Neal. Yeah, he had the big interception.
Speaking of Minka,
he was back at practice today. So that's a massive.
We don't have the official report yet to see what the participation level was, but
we do know he was back today.
He was on the practice field.
Yes, he was.
Wearing a helmet.
Yes, he was. And a jersey. and a jersey. So a positive note from Minka, who hasn't been practicing over the last couple of weeks with the hamstring issue. And, month. I shouldn't say a couple of weeks. He's been out a month. And, this was a situation where they didn't put him on injured reserve. So, you would think that because of that they would have expected him back sooner. It's kind of interesting this week with, 2 games in the span of 5 days coming up on Sunday and Thursday. So I would think that they would be 100% sure that Minka would be ready to play Sunday if they were going to put him at practice today. So it sounds like it's going to be some kind of a ramp up. Obviously, the injury report will dictate how much he practiced, but it has been confirmed that Minka was back at practice today. And that just gives this defense everything. We know Cam, we know TJ, we know Alex and how impactful they are, but Minka's the guy that makes it go. And they haven't played it they played 2 series together all season.
Yeah, they have not played a full game together all season long.
To answer your question, Jax, here you are.
Yeah,
no, they haven't.
Not an entire game. No, and that's really kind of the crazy thing, because as much as we talk about the offense, and don't get me wrong, the offense is worthy of all the discussion because of obviously everything that happened with Matt Canada getting fired, and then obviously the way the offense performed in this first game after he got fired. Offense is worthy of the discussion, but the defense is trending in the right direction. If you go to Pro Football Reference and everything, you look at where the Steelers rank in terms of pass defense, run defense, all this kind of stuff, it's still going to be overall very underwhelming numbers. But when you look at the direction that they're trending, man, they're getting a lot better. I don't have it right in front of me, but especially in the fourth quarter, man, they are not letting teams score in the fourth quarter.
No,
they're just
really
not.
clamped down in the second half. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is, and again, they've been doing that without Minka for the last 4 weeks. Once you get Minka, and that has, Mike Tomlin says that one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. Trenton Thompson has taken that opportunity and now given the Steelers a legitimate third option at safety.
Yep.
With Keanu Neal now being out. So, if Minka returns, Trenton Thompson still, in my opinion, has earned a role in this defense.
How about this from Zark and Fruit? Love some DK Sports. How did I just find you guys this year? You know what, Zarkin? Here's the answer to that. Better late than never. Welcome aboard. Yeah. We appreciate you. We appreciate you following us. And as a reminder, we are live on this program every Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, here on DK Pittsburgh Sports on YouTube. And, of course, if you want to listen to playback, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and of course it's available on DKPittsburghSports.com on demand anytime. Just as will a story on Kenny Pickett and the offense from myself from this very complex within, I'd probably say, an hour and a half or so. Busy day on the south side here. There's a security guard behind me. I'm fine though, believe me. I have my credentials. I'm okay. So the way that the rest of the week works, Chris, tomorrow's Coordinator Thursday, and a slight preview of that. I'm intrigued to hear, Jake, I appreciate that for the post-show there. Don't forget, again, on demand there. And Steven says, thanks for real news. We're trying over here. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. I think I have a pretty good judgment over here of what's going on. And look, there's stuff that has to be talked about. From a organizational standpoint, there's stuff that obviously you all want to talk about. Mm-hmm. And then there's stuff that Chris and I float around throughout the day. And again, it's part of that judgment of what is the most important thing of the day that happened over here. And that's what we bring to the show. So we're doing that as best as we can, obviously, given, and like I said, I barely made the show today. So, there's that. So again, tomorrow's Coordinator Thursday, Eddie Faulkner and Tara Lawson, of course, will speak. And along the lines of what I mentioned with Kenny Pickett earlier, the thing that I'm really intrigued about is as we would say, how the sausage is made, and that is how the proceedings worked last week, how the flow worked last week, how the game planning worked last week, and I really want to see Eddie Faulkner's temperature on how things could evolve from that point. And what he feels is, Kenny Pickett mentioned things to iron out. And I asked him what was the number one thing to iron out. And it was the efficiency and how, the understanding of getting things in quickly. And I'm curious to know Eddie Faulkner's stance on all of that. I think tomorrow's going to be a really interesting day over here.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely curious to see what Eddie Faulkner says. Just because obviously, coming off of the whatever, man, I will die out of hell. Mac and cheese is
Big shoot stuff says mac and cheese not being a Thanksgiving side dish.
I had mac and cheese on my plate at Thanksgiving, man, and it was delicious. It was homemade mac and cheese too. It was, ooh. This wasn't your store-bought shells and cheese, and don't get me wrong, I love shells and cheese, but this was homemade mac and cheese, man. This was.
There's nothing like that. 89 cent, or with inflation now, probably $1.29 of that. Just the blue box of the macaroni and cheese, if you will. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
My Thanksgiving plate had turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole. Love it. It had a little bit of ham because let me tell you why. And I know I said on this program you can't do ham at Thanksgiving. It's a Christmas meat. However, it was there, and I said, you know what? Let's break up this turkey a little bit. So I did a little 50. I did like an 80-20 split on the turkey to ham. Just a little piece of ham, something to get a little different flavor on the palate. Yeah, Jake, I'm not going to name drop it, and I'm not going to put your comment on the screen either that name drops it, okay? They're going to have to pay me, or us, over here at DK Pittsburgh Sports to say it, and I'm not going to do it. So there's that. Chris, don't you dare put that comment on the screen.
I'm not going to. That's fine.
Monongahela Mike went ravioli. That's great. Corey did a jet sweep on Thanksgiving. No, Swan, I ran out of the power eye on Thanksgiving. Let me tell you. That's what I did. I did a power eye on Thanksgiving.
I did some heavy lifting on Thanksgiving.
I did. Sure. I was in the jumbo set on Thanksgiving, man. Let me tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't go too crazy though because I had to fly out the next morning for Pitt football, but
I had to be wheeled out. It was what's really unfortunate is you start getting older, and I'm not old at all. 36 is not old, but
you're only as old as you feel, Chris.
I definitely can't eat the way that I used to. I remember I used to be able to put away 2 really, really large full plates of food. Mm-hmm. Now I get done with the 1 plate and I'm just like, and sometimes, I'm done. And sometimes I'm like, dude, I can't. Dude, elastic pants don't work that well. They really don't. I mean, not when you're trying to eat an entire. I definitely overstuff my plate, but then you got to get pumpkin pie too. So
we are. My significant other and I are celebrating our Thanksgiving tomorrow, and instead of doing another turkey, we're going to do a rotisserie chicken. So that'll be cool. Doing a little mini Thanksgiving with a different bird about that. All right, we're going to get out of here because I have to go work. Chris has to go work. We have to go to work. We appreciate you all hanging out with us today here on the Southside Beat. We'll be back as we are tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern at the same place you found this live.
Coordinator Thursday.
It'll be a fun one with Eddie Faulkner and Terrell Austin. DK and Ramon coming up in just over 25 minutes, so stay tuned to that at this same place. And we will talk to you tomorrow. He's Chris Halicke, and I'm Corey Crisan. Talk to you all tomorrow, as I just said. Peace out, everybody. Have a good one.